Imagine walking into every situation knowing no insult can provoke you, no setback can shake you, no financial pressure can control you, and no emotional storm can distract you. Imagine becoming so mentally disciplined that even chaos works in your favor because you remain steady while others panic. That is not confidence, that is control, and control is stronger than luck. Luck fades overnight, but discipline compounds every day. If you control your mouth, you control your image. If you control your mood, you control your reactions. If you control your money, you control your freedom. If you control your mind, you control your destiny. This is not motivation, this is transformation. Winning in every situation is not about changing the world around you, it is about mastering the world within you. Chapter 1. Luck is a myth the undisciplined believe. Luck is often used as a comfortable excuse by people who do not want to admit they were unprepared. It protects the ego. It is easier to say, "He was lucky," than to say, "He worked when I didn't." When you see someone succeed, you usually see the result, not the routine. You see the promotion, not the years of skill building. You see the business launch, not the late nights of learning and failing. Because preparation happens in private and opportunity happens in public, the public moment gets labeled as luck. In reality, what most people call luck is preparation meeting timing. The person who reads daily, practices daily, improves daily, and controls their habits daily may look ordinary for a long time. Nothing dramatic happens, no applause, no recognition. But when a door opens, even slightly, they are able to step through it immediately because they are ready. Someone else may see the same door but hesitate, doubt themselves, or lack the skills to walk through it. Then they say the first person was lucky. The undisciplined wait for the perfect moment to begin. They wait until they feel inspired, until the environment feels supportive, until fear disappears. When those conditions never fully arrive, they delay action and blame circumstances. The disciplined think differently. They do not ask whether they feel ready. They prepare until they are ready. They build habits when no one is watching. They practice even when progress feels slow. They improve quietly and consistently. And when opportunity does not appear, they do not sit and complain. They create visibility, they build networks, they develop value. They position themselves strategically so that opportunity has fewer excuses to ignore them. Their mindset does not depend on external permission, it depends on internal standards. Once you understand that success is built through structure, repetition, and self-control rather than random fortune, you stop waiting for life to change. You begin changing yourself. That simple shift from hoping to preparing is what separates those who watch others win from those who win themselves. Chapter 2. Control your mouth words, create your world. Most people underestimate how much damage their own mouth causes in their life. They think success is about talent, intelligence, or connections, but they ignore the power of speech. One careless sentence can destroy trust. One emotional reaction can damage reputation. One moment of gossip can weaken your credibility. Words travel faster than effort, and once they leave your mouth, you cannot take them back. When people lack discipline, they speak from emotion instead of intention. They talk too much when they should listen. They complain when they should reflect. They argue when they should observe. In the moment, it feels powerful to respond quickly or to prove a point, but long-term, impulsive speech creates enemies, closes doors, and lowers respect. Many opportunities are lost not because someone lacked ability, but because they lacked restraint. Controlling your mouth does not mean being silent all the time. It means being strategic. It means speaking with purpose, not pressure. Before you respond, you ask yourself whether your words will improve the situation or simply release your emotion. Strong individuals understand that silence can be more powerful than a reaction. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain calm, you gain control of the situation. When others gossip and you refuse to participate, you protect your image. When you speak clearly and briefly, people listen more carefully. Your words shape how others see you. If you constantly complain, people see weakness. If you constantly boast, people see insecurity. If you constantly react, people see instability. But if you speak with calm confidence, people see leadership. Over time, this perception becomes your advantage. Winning without luck requires discipline in communication because the world responds to how you present yourself. If you cannot control your mouth, you cannot control your outcomes. But when your words are measured, intentional, and thoughtful, you build trust, respect, and authority. And in competitive environments, those three things matter more than talent alone. Chapter 3. Control your mood. Emotional stability is a superpower. Most people do not lose because they lack intelligence, talent, or opportunity. They lose because they cannot control their mood. Their emotions decide their effort. Their feelings decide their discipline. If they wake up inspired, they work hard. If they wake up tired, frustrated, or discouraged, they slow down. This creates inconsistency, and inconsistency quietly destroys potential. Your mood is not meant to control you, it is meant to inform you. Anger tells you something feels unfair. Fear tells you something feels uncertain. Sadness tells you something feels lost. But when you let emotions become commands instead of signals, you give up your authority. Emotional reactions become habits, and habits shape outcomes. Think about how many people quit something important simply because they did not feel like it anymore. They started a business but stopped when progress was slow. They began improving their body but quit when results were delayed. They committed to learning but stopped when it became uncomfortable. In each case, mood overpowered discipline. And once mood becomes the leader, growth becomes unstable. Emotional stability does not mean becoming cold or robotic. It means creating a gap between what you feel and how you act. In that gap lies power. When something goes wrong, instead of reacting instantly, you pause, you breathe, you assess the situation logically. You ask yourself what action moves you forward instead of what reaction satisfies your ego. That pause is small, but it changes everything. People who master their mood become reliable. They show up when they are tired. They remain calm when others panic. They think clearly when others react emotionally. In business, this makes them trustworthy. In relationships, this makes them stable. In personal growth, this makes them unstoppable. Emotional control creates consistency, and consistency creates momentum. When criticism comes, an unstable mood turns it into personal attack. A controlled mood turns it into feedback. When failure happens, an unstable mood turns it into identity. A controlled mood turns it into information. This shift alone determines long-term success. One person says, "I failed, so I am not good enough." Another says, "This method failed, so I need to adjust." The difference is not luck, it is emotional discipline. Pressure reveals who you really are. Anyone can appear strong when life is smooth. Real strength is remaining composed when plans collapse, when money feels tight, when people doubt you, or when progress is slow. If your mood collapses every time circumstances change, your direction will constantly shift. But if your mood remains steady, your path remains clear. Training your mood requires awareness and repetition. You begin noticing patterns. You notice what triggers anger, what triggers insecurity, what triggers doubt. Instead of blaming others for these reactions, you take responsibility for regulating them. You reduce impulsive responses. You limit exposure to unnecessary negativity, You build routines that stabilize your mind, such as exercise, reflection, and focused work. Over time, your emotional reactions lose their intensity because you no longer feed them automatically. When you control your mood, you become difficult to disturb. People cannot easily manipulate you with insults or praise. You are not overly excited by temporary success, and you are not crushed by temporary setbacks. This balance keeps your decision-making sharp. Emotional extremes often lead to poor choices. Stability protects judgment. Winning without luck depends heavily on this skill. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be competition. There will always be moments that test your patience. If you depend on feeling good before acting, you will act less than necessary. But if you act according to principle rather than emotion, your progress becomes predictable. Emotional stability is a quiet superpower because it is invisible but powerful. Others may not see the internal battles you win daily, but they will see the results. They will see your calm presence, your steady improvement, and your consistent performance. They may call it confidence or maturity. In reality, it is self-control practiced repeatedly. When your mood no longer controls your actions begin to shape your future with precision. That is when you stop reacting to life and start directing it. That is when luck becomes irrelevant, because your emotional discipline keeps you moving forward regardless of how you feel on any given day. Chapter 4. Control your money. Financial discipline is freedom. Money is one of the clearest reflections of self-control because it exposes whether you think emotionally or strategically. Many people say they want success, stability, and freedom, but their financial behavior tells a different story. They spend to impress, spend to escape boredom, spend to feel important, and spend to temporarily silence insecurity. Then, when stress arrives, they blame bad luck, a weak economy, or unfair circumstances. In reality, their habits created pressure long before the crisis appeared. Controlling your money is not about becoming obsessed with wealth. It is about removing chaos from your life. Financial instability creates mental instability. When bills pile up, when debt grows, and when savings are non-existent, your mind operates under pressure. Decisions become rushed. Opportunities are ignored because you cannot afford risk. Negotiations become weak because desperation is visible. Financial stress quietly reduces confidence. Most people treat money emotionally. They reward themselves too early. They upgrade their lifestyle before upgrading their skills. They buy things to look successful instead of building systems to become successful. This creates an illusion of progress while weakening their foundation. Discipline means reversing that pattern. It means investing in growth before comfort. It means building savings before showing status. It means strengthening income sources before increasing expenses. Small financial decisions compound over time. Just as disciplined habits create long-term strength, careless spending creates long-term restriction. Spending slightly more than you earn each month may not feel dangerous immediately, but over years it builds pressure that limits freedom. On the other hand, saving and investing small amounts consistently may not feel impressive at first, but over time it creates options, and options are power. When you have financial stability, you make better decisions because urgency does not control you. You can walk away from unfair offers. You can say no to environments that drain you. You can take calculated risks because you have a safety net. This freedom changes your posture, your tone, and your confidence. People respond differently to someone who is not desperate. Controlling your money also means understanding delayed gratification. Instead of chasing quick rewards, you focus on long-term security. Instead of buying something simply because you can, you ask whether it strengthens your future. Discipline here requires patience, because financial growth is rarely dramatic in the beginning. It builds quietly through consistent saving, wise investing, skill development, and controlled spending. Another powerful shift is separating identity from possessions. Many people attach their worth to what they own. They believe expensive items prove success. But true financial control comes from internal stability, not external display. Wealth that exists only to impress others is fragile. Wealth built through structure and strategy is strong. Education plays a major role in this chapter. If you do not understand how money works, you will always struggle to manage it. Learning about budgeting, investing, risk management, and income diversification strengthens your control. Knowledge reduces fear. Fear often leads to either reckless decisions or complete inaction. Both are dangerous. Strategic understanding creates balance. Winning without luck requires removing unnecessary vulnerabilities. Financial chaos is a vulnerability. It makes you reactive. It forces compromises. It limits growth. When your finances are structured, your mind is clearer. You think long-term instead of day-to-day. You plan instead of panic. Discipline with money is not glamorous. It requires saying no more often than yes. It requires patience when others appear to be enjoying instant rewards. It requires consistency even when progress feels slow. But over time, that discipline creates stability, and stability creates confidence. Confidence allows you to operate strategically in every situation. When you control your money, you are not chasing freedom, you are building it. You are creating a life where decisions are made from strength rather than fear. That shift alone separates those who constantly struggle from those who quietly advance. And just like every other chapter in this journey, it is not luck that determines the outcome. It is control. Chapter 5. Control your mind. The battlefield is internal. Everything you experience externally is filtered through your mind first. Every opportunity, every setback, every insult, every compliment, every risk, and every reward is interpreted internally before it becomes action. If your mind is undisciplined, scattered, and easily influenced, your life will reflect confusion. If your mind is structured, focused, and stable, your life will reflect clarity. The battlefield has never been outside. It has always been within. Most people believe their problems come from circumstances, but in reality, their biggest problem is unmanaged thinking. They overthink small issues until they become overwhelming. They imagine negative outcomes before attempting anything meaningful. They compare themselves constantly and weaken their own confidence. They replay past mistakes repeatedly instead of extracting lessons and moving forward. These patterns do not look dramatic from the outside, but internally they drain power. An uncontrolled mind wastes energy. It jumps from one distraction to another. It chases short-term stimulation instead of long-term progress. It reacts emotionally to news, opinions, social media, and criticism. When attention is scattered, results become scattered. You cannot build something strong with a weak focus. Controlling your mind begins with awareness. You must first observe your thoughts instead of automatically believing them. Not every thought deserves authority. Just because you think something does not mean it is true. Doubt, fear, insecurity, and impatience often speak loudly, but they are not always accurate. The disciplined individual questions their own thinking. They ask whether a thought is useful or harmful, logical or emotional, productive or destructive. Focus is one of the most valuable mental skills in modern life. The world constantly competes for your attention because attention is power. Every notification, every trending topic, every piece of entertainment is designed to fragment your focus. If you do not protect your attention intentionally, you will give it away unconsciously. And once attention is lost, depth disappears. Without depth, mastery is impossible. Deep thinking creates strong decisions. Strong decisions create strong outcomes. When you train yourself to focus on one meaningful task at a time, you improve the quality of your output. Over weeks and months, this compounds into noticeable growth. Others may move faster in the beginning because they chase multiple things at once, but scattered effort rarely produces lasting results. Controlled focus may appear slower, but it is stable and sustainable. Mental control also requires emotional neutrality. If your thoughts are constantly reacting to how you feel, you become inconsistent. For example, if you believe you are incapable simply because you feel tired or discouraged, your performance drops. But if you separate temporary emotion from permanent identity, your thinking becomes stronger. You understand that feelings change, but principles remain. Another powerful aspect of mental discipline is perspective. Two people can face the same problem and experience completely different outcomes depending on how they interpret it. One sees rejection as humiliation and stops trying. The other sees rejection as information and adjusts their strategy. The difference is not luck, it is interpretation. Interpretation is controlled by mindset. Training the mind requires repetition. Just like building physical strength requires resistance, building mental strength requires challenges. Instead of avoiding discomfort, you begin leaning into it with awareness. You practice staying calm when pressured. You practice focusing when distracted. You practice thinking logically when emotions attempt to dominate. Over time, your reactions become more measured and less impulsive. Mental discipline also means protecting what enters your mind. The information you consume shapes your beliefs. Constant exposure to negativity creates fear. Constant exposure to comparison creates insecurity. Constant exposure to distraction weakens patience. Being selective about what you read, watch, and listen to strengthens mental clarity. You begin feeding your mind material that builds skill, perspective, and resilience instead of chaos. When your mind is controlled, you stop being easily shaken. Criticism does not break you because you analyze it. Praise does not inflate you because you stay grounded. Temporary setbacks do not convince you that you are incapable because you understand progress is rarely linear. This stability builds confidence that does not depend on validation. Winning without luck ultimately depends on mental sovereignty. If you cannot govern your thoughts, you cannot govern your actions. If you cannot govern your actions, you cannot shape your outcomes. The person who masters their mind becomes adaptable in any situation. When plans change, they adjust. When obstacles appear, they strategize. When pressure increases, they focus. The mind is either your greatest weapon or your greatest weakness. Left untrained, it amplifies fear, distraction, and doubt. Trained intentionally, it becomes a tool of precision. It filters noise, identifies opportunity, and maintains direction regardless of emotional storms. Once you gain control over your thinking patterns, you no longer feel at the mercy of circumstances. You begin to realize that external chaos does not automatically create internal chaos unless you allow it. Control your mind, and you control your perception. Control your perception, and you control your decisions. Control your decisions, and you control your future. At that point, luck is no longer relevant because your progress is guided by discipline rather than chance. Chapter 6. Master Delayed Gratification, the Hidden Advantage. If there is one skill that quietly separates those who build real power from those who stay average, it is the ability to delay gratification. Most people understand discipline in theory, but very few practice it when temptation is immediate and rewards are distant. The human brain is wired to seek comfort now and avoid discomfort now, which makes long-term thinking unnatural. That is why mastering delayed gratification feels difficult in the beginning. It goes against impulse. It requires conscious control. Immediate pleasure is seductive because it gives fast emotional relief. Spending money feels good instantly. Skipping effort feels comfortable instantly. Procrastinating feels harmless instantly. But the cost of these choices is rarely instant. It accumulates slowly. That is why undisciplined behavior is so dangerous. It does not punish you immediately, so you underestimate it. Delayed gratification works in the opposite direction. The discipline you practice today may not reward you today. Waking up early does not transform your life in a week. Saving money does not make you wealthy in a month. Studying consistently does not make you an expert overnight. The progress is subtle at first. It requires patience to continue when results are invisible. Most people quit during this invisible stage. They expect dramatic change quickly, and when it does not happen, they assume it is not working. They look at others who appear ahead and assume those people were lucky. What they fail to see is the accumulation of small, disciplined actions repeated over time. Delayed gratification strengthens identity. Each time you choose long-term benefit over short-term pleasure, you reinforce a powerful belief about yourself. You begin to see yourself as someone who can control impulses. You become someone who honors commitments, even when motivation fades. That internal shift is more important than the external reward because identity shapes behavior automatically. When you repeatedly choose discipline, you build trust with yourself. That trust increases confidence. You know that even if you feel distracted, you can return to focus. Even if you feel tempted, you can resist. Even if progress feels slow, you will continue. This self-trust is rare and powerful. Many people cannot rely on themselves because they constantly break their own promises. Financial growth depends heavily on delayed gratification. Instead of spending immediately on status or comfort, you invest in assets, skills, and stability. This may feel restrictive in the short term, especially when others appear to enjoy visible luxury. But over time, your discipline creates options, while their impulsiveness creates pressure. Eventually, the difference becomes obvious. Physical health follows the same rule. One workout does not change your body, but consistent discipline does. One unhealthy meal does not destroy your progress, but repeated poor choices do. The body reflects accumulated habits, just like wealth and skill reflect accumulated effort. Delayed gratification recognizes that small decisions matter because they compound. Professional success also rewards patience. Building expertise takes time. Building reputation takes time. Building trust takes time. If you constantly chase quick results, you sacrifice depth. Depth creates value, and value creates long-term success. Those who focus only on fast rewards often jump from opportunity to opportunity without mastering anything deeply. Those who commit long-term build foundations that are difficult to compete with. Mastering delayed gratification also protects you from emotional decision-making. When you are trained to think long-term, you are less likely to react impulsively. You do not chase every trend. You do not panic during temporary setbacks. You do not abandon strategies because progress is slower than expected. You understand that meaningful growth often feels slow before it becomes visible. Patience is not passive. It is active discipline applied consistently. It requires clarity of vision. You must know what you are building and why it matters. Without a clear long-term goal, it is difficult to resist short-term temptation. But when your direction is defined, every disciplined choice feels purposeful rather than restrictive. Over time, delayed gratification creates a compounding effect that outsiders misinterpret as luck. They see your stability, your confidence, your financial security, your skills, and your composure under pressure. They assume things aligned perfectly for you. They do not see the hundreds of moments where you chose discipline over comfort. The hidden advantage of delayed gratification is predictability. When you consistently invest effort, time, and focus into meaningful areas, results eventually follow. They may not follow your preferred timeline, but they follow the structure of consistent action. This removes randomness from your growth. Instead of hoping something good happens, you build something valuable daily. Winning without luck depends on this principle. Luck is unpredictable and uncontrollable. Delayed gratification is structured and intentional. When you consistently choose what strengthens your future instead of what satisfies your present impulse, you create momentum that becomes difficult to stop. In the end, success is rarely about dramatic moments. It is about quiet discipline repeated long enough to become unstoppable. Master delayed gratification, and you eliminate the need to depend on chance. Your progress becomes the result of patience, not probability. Chapter 7. Win in every situation, the final mental shift. The final shift that makes you unstoppable is understanding that winning is not about controlling events. It is about controlling your response to events. Most people define winning too narrowly. They think winning means getting exactly what they wanted, exactly when they wanted it. If the result matches their expectation, they call it success. If it does not, they call it failure. This limited definition keeps them emotionally unstable because life rarely follows perfect plans. Winning in every situation requires a deeper mindset. It requires redefining victory. Instead of asking, "Did I get what I wanted?" you begin asking, "Did I grow? Did I improve? Did I stay disciplined?" The moment growth becomes the standard, you become difficult to defeat. External losses may happen, but internal progress continues. Consider rejection. Most people interpret rejection as humiliation. They take it personally and allow it to damage their confidence. But if your mindset is structured correctly, rejection becomes information. It shows you where you need to improve, where your positioning was weak, or where the opportunity simply was not aligned. Instead of collapsing emotionally, you adjust strategically. That adjustment is a form of winning because it sharpens you. The same principle applies to setbacks. Business may slow down, plans may fail, relationships may change. If your identity depends on smooth circumstances, you will constantly feel unstable. But if your identity depends on discipline and growth, you remain steady even when outcomes fluctuate. You understand that temporary obstacles do not define your direction. They refine it. Winning in every situation also requires detachment from ego. Ego demands constant validation. It wants recognition, praise, and visible progress. When those things are absent, ego feels threatened. But discipline is not driven by ego. It is driven by principle. When you act according to principle rather than emotion, you remain focused regardless of applause. Control over your mouth prevents unnecessary conflict. Control over your mood prevents emotional collapse. Control over your money prevents desperation. Control over your mind prevents chaos. When these four areas are disciplined, you gain internal stability. And stability is power because it allows you to think clearly while others react emotionally. In competitive environments, most people defeat themselves. They panic under pressure. They speak carelessly when provoked. They overspend when stressed. They quit when progress slows. You do not need extraordinary luck to outperform them. You only need extraordinary consistency. If you remain composed while others lose control, you gain advantage without relying on chance. Another important shift is long-term perspective. Many people judge their success based on short-term outcomes. A bad week feels like failure. A delayed result feels like defeat. But true winners think in years, not days. They understand that meaningful growth compounds slowly. When you zoom out, temporary losses look smaller. This perspective protects your motivation and sharpens your strategy. Winning in every situation also means extracting lessons deliberately. After every experience, you reflect: what worked, what failed, what can be improved. This reflection transforms experience into wisdom. Without reflection, mistakes repeat. With reflection, mistakes become stepping stones. Emotional maturity plays a central role here. It is easy to remain calm when things go your way. It is difficult to remain calm when they do not. The ability to stay composed during uncertainty separates leaders from followers. When others look to you and see stability instead of panic, your influence grows naturally. At this level, luck becomes irrelevant because your growth does not depend on favorable circumstances. You are prepared when opportunity appears. You are patient when it delays. You are adaptable when plans change. You are resilient when pressure increases. These qualities create consistent progress regardless of randomness. Winning without luck does not mean life will be easy. It means life will not control you. Challenges will still exist. Competition will still exist. Uncertainty will still exist. But your response will be measured, strategic, and disciplined. That response determines trajectory more than circumstance ever could. When you truly internalize this mindset, fear decreases. You stop fearing loss because you know you will extract value from it. You stop fearing rejection because you know it will refine you. You stop fearing uncertainty because you trust your discipline. That trust creates confidence that does not fluctuate with temporary results. The final mental shift is simple but powerful. You realize that control over self is greater than control over events. Once you accept that you cannot control everything externally, but can control your preparation, your reactions, and your standards, anxiety reduces. Energy shifts from worrying to building. Effort shifts from blaming to improving. At that point, winning becomes inevitable over time, not because every moment goes your way, but because every moment strengthens you. Discipline replaces dependency on luck. Structure replaces hope. Strategy replaces impulse. When you reach this level of self-control, you do not wait for fortune. You become formidable. And in a world where most people are ruled by impulse, that alone is enough to win in almost every situation. Chapter 8. Discipline becomes identity, the point of no return. There comes a point in your journey where discipline is no longer something you force yourself to practice. It becomes who you are. In the beginning, self-control feels heavy. You must constantly remind yourself not to react emotionally, not to overspend, not to speak impulsively, not to quit when things feel slow. It requires conscious effort. It feels unnatural because your old habits still pull at you. But if you persist long enough, something powerful happens. Discipline shifts from effort to identity. Most people try to change outcomes without changing identity. They say they want to be successful, calm, respected, wealthy, or unstoppable, but their daily behavior does not align with those identities. They still speak carelessly. They still let mood dictate productivity. They still make emotional, financial decisions. They still allow distraction to control their focus. Because identity has not changed, behavior eventually returns to old patterns. When discipline becomes identity, your decisions become automatic. You no longer debate whether to stay calm. Calm is your standard. You no longer struggle to save or invest. Financial control is your default. You no longer fight distractions constantly. Focus becomes natural because you value it deeply. This transformation does not happen overnight. It happens through repetition. Every disciplined action strengthens the identity you are building. Identity is powerful because it shapes behavior without constant negotiation. If you see yourself as someone who finishes what they start, quitting feels unnatural. If you see yourself as someone who values growth, wasting time feels uncomfortable. If you see yourself as someone who operates strategically, reacting emotionally feels beneath your standard. You begin acting in alignment with who you believe you are. The point of no return is when you realize that discipline is not punishment. It is protection. It protects your reputation. It protects your finances. It protects your focus. It protects your future. You no longer see self-control as restriction. You see it as leverage. While others are pulled in every direction by impulse, you move in one direction with clarity. At this stage, external validation becomes less important. You do not need applause to stay consistent. You do not need constant motivation to act. You understand that results follow structure. The absence of recognition does not weaken your commitment because your commitment is internal. You operate based on standards, not moods. This identity shift also creates emotional independence. Criticism no longer shakes you deeply because you know your process. Praise no longer inflates you because you understand there is still work to do. You are stable. Stability builds quiet confidence. That confidence is not loud or arrogant. It is grounded. It comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. When discipline becomes identity, setbacks lose their power to discourage you. Instead of questioning your ability, you evaluate your strategy. Instead of doubting your potential, you adjust your approach. You do not collapse under pressure because your self-worth is not tied to a single outcome. It is tied to your commitment to growth. Many people live in cycles. They become motivated, push hard for a short period, then lose momentum and return to old habits. This cycle repeats for years. Breaking that cycle requires identity transformation. Once you see yourself as disciplined, you no longer rely on temporary motivation. You rely on structure. Winning without luck ultimately depends on reaching this level. As long as discipline feels optional, your success will feel uncertain. But once discipline becomes non-negotiable, your trajectory stabilizes. You no longer ask whether you will show up. You simply show up. You no longer debate whether you will stay composed. You remain composed. You no longer question whether you will manage your resources wisely. You act strategically. At this point, people may still call you lucky. They will see your stability, your growth, your composure under pressure, and your financial clarity. They will assume circumstances favored you. What they do not see is the internal transformation that made your behavior consistent. The true victory is not external success. It is internal mastery. When you reach the stage where discipline defines you rather than motivates you, you cross the point of no return. You are no longer trying to win occasionally. You are structured to win repeatedly. And once you are structured that way, luck is irrelevant. Your actions are aligned. Your standards are clear. Your focus is protected. Your reactions are measured. Your progress is steady. You do not depend on favorable moments anymore. You create strength daily. And strength, built consistently over time, is far more reliable than luck will ever be. Chapter 9. Pressure reveals the truth why most people break, and you will not. Pressure does not create weakness, it reveals it. When life is comfortable, almost anyone can appear disciplined, calm, and focused. When money is stable, relationships are smooth, and opportunities are flowing, confidence feels natural. But comfort is not the true test of character. Pressure is. Pressure exposes whether your control over your mouth, mood, money, and mind is real or temporary. Most people believe they are strong until something disrupts their routine. A financial setback happens, a business deal fails. Someone disrespects them publicly. Progress slows down unexpectedly. In those moments, hidden habits surface. The person who claimed emotional control reacts impulsively. The person who claimed financial discipline panics and overspends. The person who claimed mental strength begins doubting everything. Pressure does not change them, it reveals what was already there. Winning without luck requires training specifically for pressure. You must prepare your mind not only for smooth conditions but for disruption. You must expect delays. You must expect competition. You must expect unfair moments. This expectation does not make you negative, it makes you prepared. When disruption arrives and you are not surprised by it, your reaction remains controlled. Pressure compresses time and magnifies emotion. Decisions feel urgent. Reactions feel justified. Anger feels powerful. Fear feels convincing. In those moments, discipline becomes your anchor. If you have trained yourself to pause before speaking, you will not damage your position with careless words. If you have trained yourself to regulate emotion, you will not let temporary frustration destroy long-term strategy. If you have trained yourself to manage money wisely, financial turbulence will not immediately destabilize your life. Most people break under pressure because they rely on motivation instead of structure. Motivation disappears when stress rises. Structure remains. Habits remain. Identity remains. If your foundation is built on discipline rather than emotion, you respond differently when tested. Consider how many careers have been damaged, not by lack of skill, but by emotional reactions during stressful moments. One angry outburst, one impulsive decision, one desperate financial move. These are not failures of intelligence, they are failures of self-control. When pressure intensifies, untrained minds default to instinct rather than strategy. Training for pressure means practicing calm during small challenges, so you can maintain calm during larger ones. It means choosing restraint in minor disagreements so that you can remain composed in major conflicts. It means managing money carefully during stable periods so that unexpected setbacks do not create panic. Discipline practiced daily becomes strength during crisis. Pressure also exposes ego. When criticized publicly or challenged competitively, ego wants immediate defense. It wants to prove superiority, but emotional defense often weakens positioning. The controlled individual understands that not every challenge requires a reaction. Sometimes silence is strength. Sometimes strategic patience wins more than immediate retaliation. Another important aspect of pressure is clarity. Stress narrows focus. If your thinking is scattered, stress will amplify confusion. If your thinking is structured, stress will amplify focus. This is why mental training is essential. You must learn to think logically when emotions rise. You must learn to slow your breathing, slow your reaction, and analyze instead of explode. Financial pressure is one of the most common breaking points. When money tightens, fear increases. Fear often leads to reckless decisions such as taking poor deals, abandoning long-term investments, or overspending in emotional response. If your finances are structured and your spending is disciplined, you can face temporary downturns with patience instead of panic. Stability buys time, and time allows strategic thinking. Winning in pressure-filled situations does not mean avoiding stress. It means using stress as refinement. Pressure sharpens those who are prepared. Just as physical muscles grow through resistance, mental strength grows through challenge. If you treat every difficulty as training rather than punishment, you become stronger each time. Most people hope life will remain comfortable. You prepare for discomfort. That difference alone creates advantage. When others are shocked by difficulty, you remain steady. When others are overwhelmed by uncertainty, you remain focused. When others react emotionally, you respond strategically. Over time, this ability builds reputation. People begin to see you as reliable under stress. Leaders are often chosen not because they are the loudest or most charismatic, but because they remain calm when others panic. Stability under pressure inspires confidence. Confidence attracts responsibility. Responsibility creates opportunity. Luck may influence short-term outcomes, but pressure determines long-term success. If you break every time circumstances tighten, your progress will remain fragile. But if you remain composed and strategic under pressure, your growth becomes durable. The ultimate goal is this: when pressure rises, your discipline rises with it. When stress increases, your focus sharpens instead of collapsing. When challenges appear, your strategy becomes clearer instead of chaotic. At that point, you are no longer dependent on favorable conditions. You are built for unfavorable ones. And when you are built that way, you do not need luck to survive or succeed. You have trained yourself to remain strong when it matters most. By now, one truth should be clear. Winning without luck is not a fantasy. It is a formula. And that formula has nothing to do with chance and everything to do with control. When you control your mouth, you protect your reputation and position yourself strategically. You stop losing opportunities because of careless words. You stop weakening your image with emotional reactions. You understand that silence, timing, and precision are forms of power. When you control your mood, you eliminate inconsistency. You stop allowing temporary feelings to dictate permanent decisions. You become stable in unstable environments. You perform whether you feel inspired or not. Emotional control transforms you from reactive to deliberate. When you control your money, you reduce vulnerability. You remove desperation from your decisions. You build options instead of pressure. Financial discipline gives you freedom to think clearly, negotiate confidently, and act strategically. When you control your mind, everything changes. Your focus sharpens. Your reactions slow down. Your perspective strengthens. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming a student of them. Every situation becomes usable. When you master delayed gratification, you separate yourself from the majority. You choose long-term strength over short-term comfort. You build foundations instead of chasing quick results. Over time, your consistency compounds into visible progress. When you build identity around discipline, you reach the point of no return. You are no longer trying to be disciplined, you are disciplined. You no longer depend on motivation, you depend on standards. You no longer wait for the perfect moment. You operate regardless of the moment. When pressure arrives, you do not break. You adapt, you analyze, you respond with clarity instead of panic. While others collapse under stress, you remain composed. That composure becomes your advantage. This is what it truly means to control your mind to win in every situation. Winning does not mean every outcome favors you. It means every outcome strengthens you. It means no situation leaves you weaker because you extract growth from all of them. Luck may still exist. Random events may still happen. Opportunities may appear unexpectedly, but you are no longer dependent on them. If luck comes, you are prepared. If it does not, you continue building. The world will always be unpredictable. People will always behave unpredictably. Markets will fluctuate. Plans will change. But when your control over self is strong, your direction remains steady. Winning without luck is not about dominating others. It is about mastering yourself. And once you master yourself, you become difficult to defeat. Control your mouth. Control your mood. Control your money. Control your mind. Do this consistently, and you will not need luck to rise. Your discipline will make your success inevitable.